Hondo, give us a date and a time and a topic.
Oh my God, I was muted. Sorry. Yeah, today is the 21st of September, and the topic would be 1099B.
It's a 1099B instructions readout for those that, listen to the recording later. It's the instructions read out by one of our members for the 1099B. Perfect. Okay, so if you can find the instructions, pop that open and she can start reading. Perfect.
Can you see it?
Yeah, see see the plus and minus at the top, Hondo? Go ahead and click larger for her for reading. Yeah, and for the screen share. Beautiful. Okay, awesome work. Yeah, it's a lot to read. So if at any point, Jane, you would like to yield, someone else can pick up where you left off. All right.
Okay. Instructions for the Form 1099B, proceeds from broker and barter exchange transactions. Section references are to the Internal Revenue Code unless otherwise noted. Future developments. For the latest information about developments related to Form 1099B and its instructions, such as legislations enacted after they were published, go to the irs.gov/Form 1099B. Reminders. In addition to these specific instructions, you should also use the current general instructions for certain information returns. Those general instructions include information about the following topics: who must file, when and where to file, electronic reporting, corrected and void returns, statements to recipients, taxpayer identification numbers or TINs, backup withholding, penalties, the definitions of terms applicable for Chapter 4 purposes that are referenced in these instructions, other topics, and that's where my screen stops. So is it something down below that? Other topics? Oh yeah, you can get there you go. Thank you. You can get general instructions from general instructions for certain information returns at irs.gov 1099 general instructions, or go to just irs.gov/Form 1099B. Online fillable copies. To ease statement furnishing requirements, copies B, 1 and 2 are fillable online in a PDF format available at irs.gov/1099B. You can complete these copies online for furnishing statements to recipients and for retaining in your own files. Now for the specific instructions. A broker or barter exchange must file Form 1099B for each person. For whom the broker has sold, including short sales, stocks, commodities, regulated futures contracts, foreign currency contracts pursuant to a forward contract or regulated futures contract, forward contracts, debt instruments, options, securities, futures contracts, etc. for cash. Second is who received cash, stock, or other property from a corporation that the broker knows or has reason to know has had its stock acquired in an acquisition of control, or has had a substantial change in capital structure reportable on Form 8806, information return for acquisition of control or substantial change in capital structure, or those who exchanged property or services through a barter exchange. Now, I think we need to go to the top of the next one. There you go. Thank you. I have to move this thing. Sorry. A Qualified Opportunity Funds, or QOF. A QOF is an investment vehicle organized as a corporation or a partnership for the purpose of investing in qualified opportunity zone property. See section 1400Z-2D. Reporting dispositions of QOF investments. Report all dispositions of interest in the QOF regardless of the identity of the person who disposed of it. For example, if the person is a corporation, you should still file a Form 1099-B. A disposition includes any disposition of the investment, whether or not the disposition is for consideration, including by gift or inheritance. Report each disposition on a separate Form 1099-B, regardless of how many dispositions any one person has made in the calendar year. The reporting exceptions under brokers and the reporting exceptions under barter exchanges later do not apply to dispositions of interests in a QOF. If you are a QOF that is not a broker or barter exchange and do not know that a broker or barter exchange reported a disposition of an interest in a QOF, then complete the following on the form in the manner instructed for the respective items and boxes. Box 1A. For interest in the QOF, enter the appropriate descriptions. For example, for stock, enter the number of shares or units. For partnerships, enter the percentage of investment. Box 1B, enter the acquisition date of any interest in the QOF if known. Box 1C, enter the date of disposition of any interest in the QOF. And then you need to scroll down, please. Box 1D, enter the gross cash proceeds from the disposition of any interest in the QOF if known. Box 3, what happened to 2? Oh, well. Box 3, check the QOF box for reporting the disposition of an interest in the QOF. QOFs must furnish a statement to the person who disposed of the interest in a QOF investment. For additional information on furnishing statements, see Part M in the current general instructions for certain information returns. If you are a broker or barter exchange, including a QOF that is a broker or barter exchange, complete Form 1099-B as usual for all dispositions of interests in the QOFs. Follow the specific instructions for brokers or barter exchanges. For example, the reporting of a basis for a QOF investment that is a covered security. Complete all boxes as appropriate, depending on the nature of the interest disposed. For example, if the QOF investment is stock, you must complete box 1E to report cost or other basis. Also, you must check the QOF box in box 3 for all dispositions of QOF investments. Brokers. A broker is any person who, in the ordinary course of a trade or business, stands ready to effect sales to be made. Oops. Now I have the little meeting chat there at the top that I have to move. By others. A broker may include a U.S. or foreign person or a government unit and any subsidiary agency. You are considered a broker if you are an obligor that regularly issues and retires its own debt obligations, or you are a corporation that regularly redeems its own stock. However, for a sale, redemption, or retirement at an office outside of the United States, only a U.S. payer or U.S. intermediary is a broker. See Regulation Sections 1.6045-1G1 and 1.6049-5C5. You are not considered a broker if you are a corporation that purchases odd lot shares from its stockholders on an irregular basis, unless facts indicate otherwise. You manage a farm for someone else, or you are an international organization that redeems or retires its own debt. See Regulations Sections 1.605-1A1. Reporting. How many transactions to report on each form? Report each transaction other than the regulated futures, foreign currency, or Section 1256 option contracts on a separate Form 1099-B. Report transactions involving regulated futures, foreign currency, or Section 1256 or 1256 option contracts on an aggregate basis. However, you may report these contracts on an aggregate basis on a separate, I can't read, and on a separate, let's see, where am I? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. On a separate Form 1099-B for each type of contract. How many forms to file for each transaction? Report sales of each of the following types of securities on a separate Form 1099-B, even if all three types were sold in a single transaction. 1. Covered securities, defined later, with short-term gain or loss. Covered securities with long-term gain or loss. Non-covered securities, in parentheses, securities that are not covered securities. If you choose to check box 5 when reporting their sale. Okay, I didn't do that very well. Closing transactions. In the case of an option, a regulated futures contract, a securities futures contract, or a forward contract, a sale includes any closing transaction. A closing transaction is a lapse, an expiration, a settlement, an abandonment, or other termination of a position, which includes a right or an obligation under a forward contract, a regulated futures contract, a security futures contract, or an option. Example, for an option that is covered security that also has a basis of 0 in the option upon closing transaction, enter 0 in box 1E. Substitute statements. Brokers that use substitute statements may be able to report customer transactions, such as stock sales, Form 1099-B, interest earned, Forms 1099-INT and 1099-OID, dividends, Form 1099-DIV, and foreign taxes paid, Forms 1099-DIV and 1099-INT. For the year on a single substitute statement. For details, see Publication 1179, General Rules and Specifications for Substitute Forms 1096, 1098, 1099, 5498, and certain, again, thank you, and certain, thank you, and certain information returns at irs.gov, Publication 1179, which provides the rules for substitute forms. Additional information required for covered securities. For each sale of covered security for which you are required to file Form 1099-B, report the date of acquisition, Box 1B, whether the gain or loss is a short-term or long-term, and whether any portion of the gain or loss is ordinary, Box 2, cost or other basis, Box 1E, the amount of accrued market discount, Box 1F, and the loss disallowed due to a wash sale, Box 1G. When selling a non-covered security and reporting it on a separate Form 1099-B, you may check Box 5 and leave boxes 1B, 1E, 1F, and 1G and 2 blank. If you check Box 5, you may choose to report the information requested in Box 1B, E, 1F, 1G, and 2, and will not subject to penalties under Section 6721 or 6722 for failure to report this information correctly. Example: your customer, Arlo, bought shares of stock in ABC Corporation in April 2001, April 2023, and August 2023. The shares of stock bought in 2023 are covered securities. The shares of stock bought in April of 2001 are non-covered securities. In June 2024, Arlo sells all of the stock in a single transaction. Even though the stock was sold in a single transaction, you must report the sale of the covered securities on two separate 2024 Forms 1099-B, one for the securities bought in April 2023 with long-term gain or loss, and one for the securities bought in August 2023 with short-term gain or loss. You must report the sale of the non-covered securities on a third Form 1099-B or on the Form 1099-B reporting the sale of the covered securities bought in April 2023. Reporting long-term gain or loss. You may check Box 5 if reporting and non-covered. Again, I need you to scroll down. Okay. You must report the sale of the non-covered securities on a third form. Sorry, I'm going backwards, but 1099-B or on the Form 1099-B reporting the sale of the covered securities bought in April 2023, reporting long-term gain or loss. You may check Box 5 if reporting the non-covered securities on a third Form 1099-B. If you check Box 5, you may leave boxes 1. Have I already done all this? Okay. You may leave boxes 1B, 1E, 1F, 1G, and 2 blank, or you may complete boxes 1B, 1E, 1F if applicable, 1G if applicable, and 2, and not be subject to penalties under 6721 or 6722 for failing to report this information correctly. Short sales of securities. Do not report a short sale entered into after 2010 until the year a customer delivers a security to satisfy the short sale obligation, unless there's backup withholding. See section backup withholding later. Disregard sections 1259, constructive sales, and 1233H, short sales of property that becomes worthless. Report the short sale on a single Form 1099-B unless the following: you are reporting both short-term and long-term gain or loss from a short sale closed by delivery of covered securities, as explained earlier, under how many forms to file for each transaction. Or the securities delivered to close the short sale include both covered securities and non-covered securities, as explained early under how many forms to file for each transaction. Or there was backup withholding and other conditions apply. See backup withholding later. Report on Form 1099-B the relevant information about the security sold to open this short sale with the exceptions described in the following paragraphs. You might as well scroll because I can't see much past the one. Okay, great. In box 1A, report the quantity of the security delivered to close the short sale. In box 1B, report the acquisition date of the security delivered to short the short sale, to close the short sale. Box 1C, report the date the security was delivered to close the short sale. In box 1E, report the adjusted basis of the security delivered to close the short sale. In box 2, report whether any gain or loss on the closing of the short sale is a short-term or long-term based on the acquisition date of the security delivered to close the short sale. Apply Section 1233D if applicable. If the short sale is closed by delivery of a non-covered security, you may check box 5. In this case, you do not have to complete boxes 1B, 1E, 1F, 1G, and 2. However, if you choose to report the information in these boxes and check box 5, you will not be subject to the penalties under sections 6721 and 6722 for failure to report that information correctly. If a short sale obligation is satisfied by delivery of a security transferred into a customer's account accompanied by a transfer statement indicating the security was borrowed, see regulations sections 1.6045-1C3, I guess that's 11C. In the case of a short sale, you can take backup withholding either 1 from the gross proceeds when the short sale is opened, or 2 from any gain when the short sale is closed, if you expect to be able to determine the gain on the short sale. Okay, again, I can see I can see Kim Marie, but I can't see the rest of the you need to scroll up, please.
Can you see it there?
No. Okay, there we go. Now I can. Thank you.
Okay.
Uh,
For the headache I told you on today.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna take something for it.
it's not that painful. It's
Oh.
there.
Just keep drinking salt water today.
okay.
It could be just having no bubbles.
Am I right there at the security transfer to a customer's account, accompanied by a transfer statement? Okay.
Make sure I'm muted.
Somebody needs to be muted. In the case of a short sale, you can take backup withholding either from the gross proceeds when the short sale is opened or from any gain when the short sale is closed if you expect to be able to determine the gain on the short sale at the time. Backup withholding. If backup withholding was taken from the gross proceeds when a short sale was opened in 2024, but the short sale was not closed by the end of 2024, file a 2024 Form 1099-B. Report the tax withheld in box 4. In box 1A, enter a brief description of the transaction. For example, $5,000 short sale of 100 shares of ABC stock not closed. Leave the other numbered boxes blank. file a final Form 1099-B for the year that the short sale is closed, as described above, but do not include the 2024 tax withheld on that Form 1099-B. Widely held fixed investment trusts, WIFITs. Trustees and middlemen must report the amount of non-pro rata partial principal payments, that's a tongue twister, as defined in Regulations Section 1.671-5B 13, trust sales proceeds as defined in Regulations Sections 1.6715B 21. Redemption asset proceeds as defined in Regulations Sections 1.6715B 14. Redemption proceeds as defined in Regulations Sections 1.6715B 15. The sales assets proceeds as defined in Regulations Sections 1.6715B 17, and the sales proceeds as defined in Regulations Sections 1.6715B 18 that are attributable to a trust. Scroll down, please, or scroll up, I guess is the correct term. That are attributable to a trust interest holder, TIH, for the calendar year on Form 1099-B. To determine the amount of each item of proceeds to be reported on Form 1099-B, see generally Regulations Section 1.6715. If the trustee provides WIFIT information using the safe harbor rules and Regulations Section 1.6715F1 or G1, the trustee or intermediary must define the amounts reported on Forms 1099 under Regulations Sections 1.6715F2 or G2 as appropriate. Check box 5 and leave boxes 1B, 1E, 1F, 1G, and 2 blank if you are a broker reporting the sale of a security held by a WIFIT to the WIFIT trustee, or you are a trustee or intermediary of a WIFIT reporting non-pro rata partial principal payments, trust sale, proceeds, redemption asset proceeds, redemption proceeds, sales asset proceeds, and sales proceeds to a TIH. A requirement to furnish a tax information statement to a TIH. A tax information statement that includes the information provided to the IRS on Form 1099-B, as well as an additional information identified in Regulation Sections 1.6715E, must be provided to trust interest holder. The written tax information statement furnished to the trust interest holder for 2024 is due on or before March 15th, 2025. The amount of an item of a trust expense that is attributable to a trust interest holder must be included on the tax information statement provided to the trust interest holder and is not required to be included in box 5 on the Form 1099 DIV. See Regulation Sections 1.6715E for a complete list of the items of information that must be included in the statement to the trust interest holder. acquisition of control or substantial change in capital structure. File Form 1099-B for each customer who receives cash, stock, or other property from a corporation that you know or have reason to know based on readily available information, must recognize gain under Section 367A from the transfer of a property to a foreign corporation in an acquisition of control or substantial change in capital structure reportable on Form 8806. Readily available information includes information from a clearing organization such as a depository trust company, a DTC, or from information published on the IRS website. If you could scroll up, great. For more information, see Form 8806 available at the IRS.gov Form 8806. You are not required to file a second Form 1099-B for a customer who received only cash for stock acquired in an acquisition of control if you report the cash as proceeds from a sale on another Form 1099-B. You are also not required to file Form 1099-B for a customer who is an exempt recipient under Regulation Section 1.605-1C3(1) or 1.6043-4B5. For a list of exempt recipients, see the current instructions for Form 1099 CAP. Enter in box 1D the aggregate amount of cash and the fair market value, or FMV, of any stock and other property received in exchange for stock held in your custody. Also, check box 7. In box 1A, show the corporation's name and the number of shares of the corporation's stock you held that were exchanged. Also, enter the class or classes of stock, for example, preferred, common, etc., that were exchanged whether for cash or for other property. Abbreviate the class to fit the entry. For example, enter C for common stock, P for preferred, or O for other. Also, abbreviate any subclasses. Leave the other numbered boxes and the CUSIP number box blank unless you are required to file a Form 1099-B to report proceeds you paid to the customer from, I can't see. Oops. From the from the acquisition of control or substantial change in capital structure. And you choose to file and furnish one Form 1099-B for amounts reported under both regulations, sections 1.6045-1 and 1.6045-3. If you choose to combine the reporting for both, do not combine other transactions the customer may have had during the year with the reporting of the acquisition, control, or exchange in capital structure. Also, in box 1E, report the total basis of the customer's stock. Do not enter an amount in box 1E that is greater than the amount entered in box 1D. Cash on delivery account. For a sale of securities through a cash on delivery or similar account, only the broker that receives the gross proceeds from the sale against delivery of the securities sold is required to report. The sale. However, if such broker's customer is a second party broker that is an exempt recipient, only the second party broker is required to report the sale. Foreign currency. If the purchase amount of sales proceeds are paid in foreign currency, you must report the amount of foreign currency in US dollars. Generally, you must determine the reportable amount other than amounts representing accrued interest or original issue discount as of the date you receive credit or make a payment, whichever applies, at the spot rate or by following a reasonable spot rate convention, such as month-end spot rate or a monthly average spot rate. When reporting the purchase or sale of a security traded on an established securities market, you must determine the US dollar amounts to be reported. That is, other than the amounts representing accrued interest or original issue discount, as of the settlement date at the spot rate or by following a reasonable spot rate convention. See Regulation Section 1.6045-1D8. Generally, payments of foreign currency amounts representing accrued interest or original issue discount must be translated using the average rate for the interest accrual period. However, although certain customers may elect to translate such amounts using the spot rate on the last day of the interest accrual period. See Regulation Section 1.988-2B2 and 1.6045-1N4V. Substitute payments. Do not report substitute payments in lieu of dividends and tax-exempt interest on Form 1099-B. Instead, report these payments in Box 8 of Form 1099 MISC, Miscellaneous Income. See Section 6045D and instructions for Forms 1099 Miscellaneous, MISC, and 1099 NEC. Stock options granted in connection with the performance of services. If an employee, former employee, or other service provider in connection with the performance of services obtains substantially vested shares of stock from the exercise of a stock option and sells that stock through a broker on the same day, then the broker may not be required to report the sale on Form 1099-B. For details, see REV, I'm not sure what that means, PROC 2002-50, which is on page 173 of Internal Revenue Bulletin 2002 to 29 at irs.gov-pub publications-irs-1RBS/IRB02-29 PDF. Partnership sale. Form 8308, report of a sale or exchange of certain partnership interest, does not have to be filed if, under Section 6045, a return is required to be filed by a broker on Form 1099-B for the transfer of the partnership interest. Exceptions. Brokers are not required to file, but may file Form 1099-B for the following. 1. Sales for exempt recipients, including the following: charitable organizations, IRAs, Archer MSAs and health savings accounts, HSAs. The United States or any state of a political subdivision of the United States or any state. E, corporations, however, See identifying corporation later for instructions about how to know whether a customer is a corporation for this purpose. Also, you must file 1099-B for the sale of a covered security, defined later, by an S corporation if the S corporation acquired the covered security after 2011. Number 2, sales initiated by dealers in securities and financial institutions. 3, sales by custodians and trustees, provided the sale is reported on a properly filed Form 1041 U.S. income tax return for estates and trusts. Number 4, sales of shares in a regulated investment company that is a money market fund. 5, obligor payments on the following: A, non-transferable obligations such as savings bonds or CDs. B, obligations for which gross proceeds are reported on other Forms 1099, such as stripped coupons issued before July 1st, 1982. C, callable demand obligations issued before January 1st, 2014 that have no premium or discount. 6, sales of foreign currency unless under a forward or regulated futures contract that requires delivery of foreign currency. Or 7, sales of fractional shares of stock if gross proceeds, are less than $20. 8, requirements of book entry or registered form obligations issued before January 1st, 2014, if no interim transfers have occurred. 9, sales for exempt foreign persons as defined in regulation sections 1.605-1G1. 10, sales of commodity credit corporation certificates. 11, spot or forward sales of agricultural commodities. See spot or forward sales of agricultural commodities later. 12, some sales of precious metals. See sales of precious metals later. 13, grants or purchases of options, purchases due to exercises of call options, or entering into contracts that require delivery of personal property or an interest therein. 14, sales, including retirements, of a short-term obligations issued on or after January 1st, 2014. However, a broker may be required to file a Form 1099 INT for interest or original issue discount on a short-term obligation. And finally, 15, sales of digital assets. See sales of digital assets later. Identifying corporation. For sales of covered securities, defined later, that were acquired after 2011, you cannot rely on regulation sections 1.6049-4C1, 2A to tell whether a customer is a corporation. However, for sales of all securities, you can treat a customer as an exempt recipient if one of the following statements is true. 1, the name of the customer contains the term and can't see it. The term insurance company, indemnity company, reinsurance company, or assurance company. Number 2, the name of the customer indicates it is an entity listed as a per se corporation under regulations section 301.7701-2B81. 3, you receive a properly completed exemption certificate on Form W9 that shows the customer is not an S corporation. Or 4, you receive a Form W8 that indicates a certification that the person whose name is on the form is a foreign corporation. Spot or forward sales of agricultural commodities. Agricultural commodities include grain, feed, livestock, meat, oilseed, timber, and fiber. A spot sale is a sale that results in an almost immediate delivery of a commodity. A forward sale is a sale under a forward contract. However, sales and exchanges of timber for lump sum payments must be reported on Form 1099-S, proceeds from real estate transactions. That's pretty interesting. Report sales of agricultural commodities under a regulated futures contract, sales of derivative interests in agricultural commodities, and sales or of receipts for agricultural commodities issued by a designated warehouse on Form 1099-B. A designated warehouse is a warehouse or depository or other similar entity designated by a commodity exchange in which or out of which a particular type of agricultural commodity is deliverable to satisfy a regulated futures contract. Sales of warehouse receipts issued by any other warehouse are not reportable. Okay. You need to scroll up, please. Can't see. Reportable. There we go. Sales of precious metals. A sale of a precious metal, gold, silver, platinum, or palladium in any form for which the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, has not approved trading by regulated futures contract, RFC, is not reportable. Further, even if the sale of a precious metal in the form for which the CFTC has approved trading by RFC, the sale is not reportable if the quantity by weight or by number of items is less than the minimum required to satisfy the minimum required quantity to satisfy a Commodity Futures Trading Commission approved RFC, regulated futures contract. For example, a broker selling a single gold coin does not need to file Form 1099-B, even if the coin of such form and quality that it could be delivered to satisfy a CFTC approved RFC if all CFTC approved contracts for gold coins currently call for delivery of at least 25 coins. That's also interesting. Sales of precious metals for a single customer during a 24-hour period must be aggregated and treated as a single sale to determine if this exception applies. This exception does not apply if the broker knows or has reason to know that a customer, either alone or with a related person, is engaging in sales to avoid information reporting. Sales of digital assets. A digital asset is a digital representation of value that is recorded on a cryptographically secured distributed ledger or any similar technology. Okay. For sales of digital assets, there are also securities, commodities, or other financial instruments. The existing rules for reporting on Form 1099-B continue to apply. For other digital asset sales that a broker has effected for customers, the broker is not required to file a Form 1099-B, but may voluntarily file a Form 1099-B for each customer and will not be subject to penalties under Section 6721 or 6722 for failure to report or furnish the information. Interesting. Correctly, I would have thought there was a period there. For rules on penalty relief for voluntary reporting, see proposed regulations, REG 122793-19, published August 29th, 2023. Exemption certificate. A broker may require an exempt recipient to file a properly completed Form W-9 request for taxpayer identification number and certification or similar form. A broker may treat an exemption recipient that fails to do so as a recipient that is not exempt. See Part J in the current general instructions for certain information returns for more information. Transfer statement. Any person that transfers custody of a specified security, defined later, to a broker after 2010, after 2011, if the stock is in a regulated investment company, and after 2014 for certain debt instruments, options, and securities future contracts, must give the broker a written transfer statement within 15 days after the date of settlement for the transfer. The transferor must furnish a separate statement for each security, and if transferring custody of the same security acquired on different dates or at different prices, for each acquisition. However, a separate statement is not required for non-covered securities and securities acquired more than 5 years before the transfer, for which basis is determined using an average basis method. These rules apply to any broker, anyone that acts as a custodian of securities in the ordinary course of trade or business, any issuer of securities, any trustee or custodian of an individual retirement plan, or any agent of the above. These rules do not apply to the beneficial owner of a security or an agent substituted for an undisclosed beneficial owner, any governmental unit or any agency or instrumentality of a governmental unit holding escheated securities, I think that's how you pronounce that, or any organization that holds and transfers obligations among members as a service to its members. Information required. Each transfer statement must include date the statement is furnished, name, address, and telephone number of the person. Can't see it. Of the person, name, address, and telephone number of the person furnishing the statement, name, address, and telephone number of the broker receiving custody of the security, name of the customer or customers for the account from which the security is transferred, account number for the transferring account, and if different, the receiving account, CUSIP or other security identifier number of the transferred security, number of shares or units, type of security such as stock, debt instrument, or option, date the transfer was initiated and settlement date of the transfer, if known, and the security's total adjusted basis, original acquisition date, and if applicable, the holding period adjustment under section 1091. For a debt instrument, the following additional information is required: a description of the payment terms used by the broker to complete any basis adjustments under regulation section 1.6045-1N, the issue price, the issue date, if different from the original acquisition date, the adjusted issue price as of the transfer date, the initial basis, any market discount that has accrued as of the transfer date, any bond premium that has been amortized as of the transfer date, any acquisition premium that has been amortized as of the transfer date, whether the transferring broker has computed any of the information by taking into account one or more elections under regulation sections 1.605-1N, or the last date on or before the transfer date that the broker made an adjustment for a particular item relating to a debt instrument transferring on or after January 1, 2016. For all option transfers, include the following: please scroll up. The date of grant or acquisition of the option, the amount of the date or acquisition of the option, the amount of premium paid or received, and any other information required to fully describe the option. For the transfer of a section 1256 option on or after January 1st, 2016, also provide the original basis of the option and the FMV of the option as of the end of the prior calendar year. The adjusted basis, original acquisition date, holding period adjustment, and the additional information for a debt instrument or option described above are not required if the transfer statement identifies the security as a non-covered security. If the names of the customer or customers for the transferring and receiving amounts are not the same, the transfer statement must also include the name of the customer or customers for the account to which the security is transferred. However, if the transfer is to or from an account for which a broker, custodian, or other person subject to the transfer, sorry, scroll up, please. Gosh, it's so close to the bottom, isn't it? Oh yeah, okay. However, if the transfer is to or from an account for which a broker, custodian, or other person subject to the transfer reporting rules is the customer, the transfer statement must treat the beneficial owner or, if applicable, an agent substituted by an undisclosed beneficial owner as the customer for both accounts. And the broker receiving the transfer statement should treat the security as held for the beneficial owner or the beneficial owner's agent, regardless of the customer listed for the broker's account. The person furnishing and the broker receiving the transfer statement can agree to combine the information in any format or to use a code in place of one or more required items. The transferor should determine the adjusted basis and other information to be reported as explained in these instructions. If the basis of the transferred security is determined using an average basis method, any securities acquired more than 5 years prior to the transfer may be reported on a single statement on which the original acquisition date is reported as various, but only if other information reported applies to all the securities. Effect on Form 1099-B and other transfer statements. In preparing Form 1099-B or a transfer statement for securities you transferred to someone else, you must take into account all the information other than securities classifications reported on a transfer statement you receive unless the statement is incomplete or you know it is incorrect. If you do not receive a required transfer statement by the due date, you must request one from the transferor. If a complete transfer statement is not furnished, either after you requested one or because no transfer statement was required, you may treat the security as non-covered. However, you must file a corrected Form 1099-B within 30 days of receiving a transfer statement indicating that the security is a covered security. But you do not have to file a corrected Form 1099-B if you receive the statement more than 3 years after you filed the original Form 1099-B. You must also furnish a corrected transfer statement within 15 days of receiving a transfer statement, indicating that a security is a covered security if you transferred the security transferred to you. But you do not have to furnish a corrected transfer statement if you receive the transfer statement more than 18 months after you furnished your transfer statement. More information. For more information about transfer statements, I'm only guessing that the next word is statement. Yeah. Including definitions, exceptions, rules for gift transfers, transfers from a decedent estate, and transfers of borrowed securities, see Regulations, Section 1.605A1. Issuer returns for actions affecting basis. An issuer of a specified security, defined later, that takes an organizational action that affects the basis of the security must file an issuer return on Form 8937. This applies to organizational actions after 2010 or after 2011 if the stock is in a regulated investment company, and after 2013 for debt instruments, options, and securities future contracts. The return is due on or before the 45th day following the organizational action, or if earlier, January the 15th of the next calendar year. An issuer is not required to file this return if by the due date, the issuer posts the return with the required information in a readily accessible format in an area of its primary public website dedicated to the purpose and, for 10 years, keeps the return accessible to the public on its primary public website or the primary public website of any successor organization. An issuer may electronically sign a return that is publicly reported on the issuer's public website. The electronic signature must identify the individual who is signing the return. Effect on Form 1099-B and transfer statements. In preparing Form 1099-B or a transfer statement, you must take into account all the information reported by the issuer of the security on a statement that the issuer furnishes to you or is deemed to furnish to you, unless the issuer statement is incomplete or is incorrect. Take into account only those organizational actions taken by the issuer of the security during the period you held custody of the security, beginning with the date on which you received a transferred security. If you receive or are deemed to receive an issuer statement after filing Form 1099-B, you must file a corrected Form 1099-B within 30 days of receiving the issuer statement. But if you do not have to file a corrected Form 1099-B, but you do not have to file a Form 1099-B if you received the issuer statement more than 3 years after you filed the original Form 1099-B. If you receive or are deemed to receive an issuer statement after furnishing a transfer statement for a covered security, you must furnish a corrected transfer statement within 15 days of receiving the issuer statement. But you do not have to furnish a corrected transfer statement if you receive the issuer statement more than 18 months after you furnish the original transfer statement. For more information, see Form 8937 and its instructions and regulations, Section 1.6045B-1. Barter exchanges. A barter exchange is any person or organization with members or clients that contract with each other or with the barter exchange to jointly trade or barter property or services. The term does not include arrangements that provide solely for the informal exchange of similar services on a non-commercial basis. Persons who do not contract with a barter exchange, but who trade services, do not file Form 1099-B. However, they may have to file Form 1099 MISC, miscellaneous. Transactional aggregate reporting. Barter exchanges involving non-corporate members or clients must report each transaction on a separate Form 1099-B. Transactions involving corporate members or clients of a barter exchange may be reported on an aggregate basis. Member information. In the recipient area of Form 1099-B, enter information about the member or client that provided the property or services in the exchange. Exceptions. Barter exchanges are not required to file Form 1099-B for 1. Exchanges that through a barter exchange having fewer than 100 transactions during the year. 2. Exempt foreign persons as defined in Regulation Sections 1.6045-1 G1, or 3. Exchanges involving property or services with an FMV of less than $1. Statements to recipients. If you are required to file Form 1099-B, you must provide a statement to the recipient. For more information about the requirement to furnish a statement to the recipient, see Part M in the current general instructions for certain information returns. Truncating recipients' TIN on payment statements. Pursuant to regulations section 301.6109-4, all filers of this form may truncate a recipient's TIN or Social Security number, SSN, individual taxpayer identification number, ITIN, adoption taxpayer identification number, ATIN, or employer identification number, EIN, on payee statements. Truncation is not allowed on any documents the filer files with the IRS. A filer's TIN may not be truncated on any form. See Part J in the current general instructions for certain information returns. Second TIN not checkbox. You may enter an X in this box if you were notified by the IRS twice within 3 calendar years that the payee provided an incorrect TIN. If you mark this box, the IRS will not send you any further notices about this account. However, if you received both IRS notices in the same year, or if you received them in different years, but they both related to information returns filed for the same year, do not check the box at this time. For purposes of the 2 notices in 3 years rule, you are considered to have received 1 notice, and you are not required to send a second B notice to the taxpayer on recipient of the second notice. See Part N of the current general instructions for certain information returns for more information. Tip: for more information on the TIN matching system offered by the IRS, see the current general instructions for certain information returns. CUSIP number. For transactional reporting by brokers, enter the CUSIP, Committee on Uniform Security Identification procedures, number of the security or other applicable identifying number. Account number. The account number is required if you have multiple accounts for a recipient for whom you are filing more than one Form 1099-B. The account number is also required if you check the FATCA, FATCA filing requirement checkbox. See FATCA filing requirement checkbox below. Additionally, the IRS encourages you to designate an account number for all Forms 1099-B that you file. See Part L in the current general instructions for certain information returns. FATCA filling requirement checkbox. Check the box if you are a foreign financial institution, FFI, reporting payments to a U.S. account pursuant to an election described in Regulation Sections 1.1471-4D51A. In addition, check the box if you are a U.S. payer that is reporting on Form 1099-B as part of satisfying your requirement to report with respect to a U.S. account for Chapter 4 purposes as described in Regulation Section 1.1471-4D23A. Applicable try to say that a couple times. Checkbox on Form 8949. Use this box to enter a one-letter code that will assist the recipient in reporting the transaction on Form 8949 and or Schedule D, Form 1040. Use the code below that applies to show the recipient will report the transaction. Code A. This code indicates a short-term transaction for which the cost or other basis is being reported to the IRS. Use this code to report a transaction that the recipient am I at the top here? That the recipient will report on Schedule D, Form 1040, line 1A, or on Form 8949 with box A checked with totals being carried to Schedule D, Form 1040, line 1B. Code B. This code indicates a short-term transaction for which the cost or other basis is not being reported to the IRS. Use this code to report a transaction that the recipient will report on Form 8949 with box B checked, with totals being carried to Schedule D, Form 1040 on line 2. Code D. This code indicates a long-term transaction for which the cost or other basis is being reported to the IRS. Use this code to report a transaction that the recipient will report on Schedule D on Form 1040, line 8A, or on Form 8949 with box D checked, with totals being carried to Schedule D, Form 1040, line 8B. Code E. This code indicates a long-term transaction for which the cost or other basis is not being reported to the IRS. Use this code to report a transaction that the recipient will report on Form 8949 with box E checked, with totals being carried to Schedule D on Form 1040, line 9. Code X. Use this code to report a transaction if you cannot determine whether the recipient should check box B or box E on Form 8949 because the holding period is unknown. Box 1A. Description of property. For stock and debt instruments, enter the issuer's name and the number of shares or units you held that were exchanged. For stock, also enter the class or classes of stock, for example, preferred, common, etc., that were exchanged, whether for cash or other property. Abbreviate the class to fit the entry. For example, enter C for common stock, P for preferred, or O for other. Also abbreviate any subclasses. For a non-Section 1256 option or securities futures contract, enter the name of the underlier and the number of shares or units covered by the contract. For bartering transactions, describe the service or property provided. For regulated futures contracts and forward contracts, enter RFC or other appropriate description. For Section 1256 option contracts, enter Section 1256 option or other appropriate description. See acquisition of control or substantial change in capital structure. Listed earlier for the information to enter in. Sorry, I can't see below that. Box 1A for that type of transaction. When sorry, it's like so frustrating when it's only one line. Box 1B, date acquired. Enter the acquisition date of any securities sold. Leave this box blank if 1, the securities sold were acquired on a variety of dates, or 2, if you check box 5 and do not choose to complete box 1B. For short sales, see short sales of securities listed earlier. Box 1C, date sold or disposed. For broker transactions, enter the trade date of the sale or exchange. For short sales, see short sales of securities earlier. For barter exchanges, enter the date that cash, property, a credit, or scrip is actually or constructively received. Box 1D, proceeds. Enter the gross cash proceeds from all dispositions, including short sales, of securities, commodities, options, securities futures contracts, or forwards contracts. Show a loss, such as one from a closing transaction on a written option or forward contract, as a negative amount by enclosing it in parentheses. You must reduce the proceeds by commissions and transfer taxes related to the sale. I'm just going to make a quick note about that parentheses. When you were filling out your ES and you were putting the minus number, they're telling you here you needed to put it in parentheses. You must reduce the proceeds by commissions and transfer taxes related to the sale. For securities sold because of the exercise of an option granted or acquired before 2014, you may or may not be required. You may but are not required to take into account option premiums in determining gross proceeds if that is consistent with your books. For securities sold because of the exercise of an option granted after 2013, or for the treatment of an option granted or acquired after 2013, see Regulation Section 1.6045-1M for details. If you reduce gross proceeds by option premiums, check the second box in box 6. Otherwise, check the first box. Do not include amounts shown in boxes 8 through 11. If identical stock is sold at separate times on the same calendar day by a single trade order and a single confirmation is given that reports to the customer an aggregate price or an average price per share, you can determine gross proceeds by averaging the proceeds for each share. However, do not do this if the customer notifies you in writing of an intent to determine the proceeds from the sale by the actual proceeds per share, and you receive that notification by January the 15th of the calendar year following the year of the sale. You may extend the January 15th deadline, but not beyond the due date for filing Form 1099-B. Do not include any accrued qualified statement interest on bonds sold between payment dates or on a payment date in this box. Instead, report this accrued interest on Form 1099-INT. For reporting an acquisition of control or substantial change in capital structure, see acquisition of control or substantial change in capital structure listed earlier. Box 1E, cost or other basis. Enter the adjusted basis of any security sold unless the security is not a covered security, and you check box 5. If you check box 5 and are not reporting basis, leave box 1E blank. Enter 0 in box 1E only if the security sold actually had a basis of 0. Covered security. A covered security is any of the following: stock acquired for cash in an account after 2010, except stock for which the average basis method is available. 2, stock for which the average basis method is available and that is acquired for cash in an account after 2011. 3, a specified security transferred to an account if the broker or any custodian of the account receives a transfer statement, also explained earlier, reporting the security as a covered security. 4, certain debt instruments or options that are specified securities required for cash in an account after 2013. See Regulation Section 1.6045-1A, 15, 1, C, and E. Certain debt instruments or options that are specified securities acquired for cash in an account after 2015. See Regulation Section 1.60451A, 15, 1D, and 1.6045-1M2. This includes variable rate debt instruments, inflation indexed debt instruments, contingent payment debt instruments, convertible debt instruments, options on debt instruments with payments denominated in or determined by reference to a security other than the US dollar, and for options issued as part of investment units. Next, the securities futures contract entered into an account after 2013, or a security acquired due to a stock dividend, stock split, reorganization, redemption, stock conversion, recapitalization, corporate division, or other similar action if the basis of the acquired security is determined from the basis of a covered security, is what I'm guessing. Because I can't quite see the full word. Specified security. A specified security is any of the following: any share of stock or any interest treated as stock, such as American Depository Receipt, in an entity organized as or treated for federal tax purposes as a corporation, foreign or domestic. For this purpose, a security classified as stock by the issuer is treated as stock. If the issuer has not classified the security is not treated as stock unless the broker knows that the security is reasonably classified as stock under general federal tax principles. Any debt instrument other than a debt instrument subject to Section 1272A6, certain interests in or mortgages held by a real estate mortgage investment conduit at REMIC, certain other debt instruments with payments subject to acceleration, and pools of debt instruments, the yield on which may be affected by prepayments or any short-term obligation. For any sorry, let's see, or any short-term obligation. For this purpose, a security classified as debt by the issuer is treated as debt. If the issuer has not classified the security is not treated as debt unless the broker knows that the security is reasonably classified as debt under general federal tax principles, or that the instrument or position is treated as a debt instrument under a specific provision of the IRS code. Any option on one or more specified securities, which includes an index substantially all components of which are specified securities, any option on financial attributes of specified securities, or a warrant or stock right. Also, any securities futures contract. Non-covered security. A non-covered security is any security that is not a covered security. The following securities are not covered securities. Stocks acquired in 2011, a stock acquired in 2011 that was transferred in 2011 to a dividend reinvestment plan that meets the requirements of Regulation Section 1.1012-1E6. However, a covered security acquired in 2011 and transferred to a dividend reinvestment plan after 2011 remains a covered security. For purposes of this rule, a stock is considered transferred to a dividend reinvestment plan if it is held in a plan that is not a dividend reinvestment plan, and the plan amends its plan documents to become a dividend reinvestment plan. The stock is considered transferred as of the effective date of the plan amendments. Or a security acquired due to a stock dividend, stock split, reorganization, redemption, stock conversion, recapitalization, corporate division, or other similar action if the basis of the acquired security is determined from the basis of a non-covered security. Or a security that, when acquired, did not have to be reported on Form 1099-B because it was acquired as an exempt recipient or an exempt foreign person as defined in Regulation Section 1.6045-1G1. Or a security for which reporting is required by Regulation Section 1.6049-5D32. Ooh. Certain securities owned by foreign intermediary or flow-through entity. A debt instrument, if the terms of the debt instrument are not reasonably available to the broker within 90 days of the debt instrument was acquired by the customer, and the debt instrument is either a debt instrument issued by a non-U.S. issuer or a tax-exempt obligation issued before January the 1st, 2014. Identification of securities. If the customer has acquired securities on different dates or at different prices and sells less than the entire position in the security, report the sale according to the customer's adequate and timely identification of the security to be sold. If no identification is provided, report the sale in this order. Any shares, number one, any shares for which the acquisition date is unknown. Sorry, I have a Great Pyrenees at Howells. And then he gets the other ones to hell with him. Number 2, the shares that were required first, whether they are covered or non-covered securities. Average basis method. Generally, the average basis method is available for either of the following types of stock if the customer leaves the shares with a custodian or agent in an account and acquires identical shares of stock at different prices in the account. Stock in most mutual funds or other regulated investment companies, or stock acquired after 2010 in connection with a dividend reinvestment plan that meets the requirements of regulations 1.1012-1E6. Then you compute the basis using the average basis method if the customer elects that method, or you choose the average basis method as your default method, and the customer does not give you any other instructions. Generally, determine the average basis of a share of stock by dividing the aggregate basis of all shares of identical stock in an account by the total number of shares, regardless of holding period. However, for this purpose, shares of stock in a dividend reinvestment plan are not identical to shares of stock with the same CUSIP number that are not in a dividend reinvestment plan. The basis of each share of identical stock in the account is the aggregate basis of all shares of the stock in the account divided by the aggregate number of shares. Unless a single account election is in effect, you may not average together the basis of identical stock held in separate accounts that is sold, exchanged, or otherwise disposed of after December 31st, 2011. See Regulations Section 1.1012-1E for details. Adjusted basis. The adjusted basis begins with the initial basis, defined later, as of the date the security is acquired in an account. In reporting the adjusted basis, take into account all information other than the classification of the security, such as stock, reported on a transfer statement or issuer return furnished to you or redeemed or deemed furnished to you, unless that statement or return is incomplete or you know it is incorrect. See transfer statement and issuer returns for actions affecting basis, also listed earlier. Also treat Form 2439 as an issuer return and take into account the effects of an undistributed capital gains reported to you on the form by a regulated investment company or a real estate investment trust. You are not required to consider other transactions, elections, or events occurring outside the account when determining basis. You are also not required to apply Section 1259, constructive sales, Section 475, market-to-market method of accounting, Section 1296, mark-to-market method of accounting for marketable stock in a passive foreign investment company, and Section 1092, straddles. For a debt instrument, see Regulation Section 1.6056045-1N7 and 1.6045-1N11 for the rules to determine adjusted basis for a debt instrument acquired at a premium or discount. Initial basis. If a customer paid cash for a security, the initial basis is 1, the total cash paid by the customer or credited against the customer's account for the security, plus 2, the commission and transfer taxes to buy the security. You may, but may not have to take option premiums into account to determine the initial basis of securities acquired by exercising an option, granted or acquired before 2014, or increase initial basis for income recognized upon the exercise of a compensatory option or vesting or exercise of another equity-based compensation arrangements granted or acquired before 2014. You cannot increase initial basis for income recognized upon the exercise of a compensatory option or the vesting or exercise or other equity-based compensation arrangements granted or acquired after 2013. For rules related to options granted or acquired after 2013, see, I'd have to guess because I can't see it. See, it's so frustrating. It's so close. Or investing or other compensated after 20 for rules related to options granted or acquired after 2013, see regulations section 1.6045-1M. You must report the basis of identical stock by averaging the basis of each share if the stock was purchased at separate times on the same calendar year and executing a single trade order, and is the reading being looped, or no, they just repeat themselves. And the broker executing the trade provides a single confirmation to the customer that reports an aggregate total price or an average price per share. However, do not average the basis if the customer timely notifies you in writing of an intent or determined basis by the actual cost per share. The initial basis of a security transferred to an account is generally the basis reported on a transfer statement. If a transfer statement indicates that the security is acquired as a gift, you must apply the relevant basis rules for property acquired by a gift in determining the initial basis, except you do not have to, as a gift in terms of the initial basis, except you do not have to adjust the basis for gift tax. Treat the initial basis as equal to the gross proceeds from the sale if neither gain nor loss is recognized because of the basis rules for gift property, or the initial basis depends on FMV as of the date of the gift, and you neither know nor can readily ascertain this value. Short sales. In the case of a short sale, report the adjusted basis of the security delivered to close the short sale. Wash sales. If a customer acquired securities that both caused a loss from a sale of other securities to be both non-deductible under Section 1091, and the loss was reported as a wash sale adjustment on Form 1099B for the sale at a loss, increase the adjusted basis of the acquired securities by the amount of the disallowed loss, period. Corporate mergers. Report only the net reduction in basis between stock exchange and stock received when reporting the payment of cash paid as part of a corporate merger, reorganization, or similar event that is taxable only to the extent that cash or property other than the stock or securities, in parentheses, boot, is received and for which no loss can be recognized. Enter only the amount of the reduction attributable to the amount reported in box 1D. Enter the amount as a positive number. However, do not apply this rule and instead report adjusted basis as described earlier, for any stock considered to have been redeemed or sold, for example, fractional shares of stock resulting from the merger that are only paid in cash. Example, your customer Adrian buys 100 shares of covered stock in MNO Corporation for $5,000 in February 2024. MNO Corporation merges with PQR Corporation in December 2024. The merger is taxable only to the extent that the boot is received. Adrian receives 100 shares of PQR stock with a value of $4,700 and $800 cash boot in exchange for MNO stock. Adrian's resulting basis in the PQR stock is $4,700. Report the $800 cash boot in box 1D and report $300 in box 1E to reflect the net reduction in basis from $5,000 for the MNO stock to $4,700 for the PQR stock. Box 1F, accrued market discount. Enter the amount of accrued market discount in box 1F. Box 1G, wash sale loss disallowed. Wash sales. Report wash sale loss amount disallowed. You must report any loss disallowed under Section 1091 if both the sale and the purchase transactions occur in the same account with respect to covered securities with the same CUSIP number. You are permitted but are not required to report in box 1G all loss disallowed under Section 1091. For example, you may report a disallowed loss even though a security is sold in one account and repurchased in a different account. Increase the adjusted basis of the acquired securities by the amount of the disallowed loss reported in box 1G. You also do not have to apply the wash sales if the purchased security is transferred to another account before the wash sale, or the purchased security was purchased in another account and later transferred into the account from which the securities were sold, or the securities are treated as held in separate accounts, or finally, the customer has notified you in writing, including in an electronic format, that they have made a valid and timely market-to-market election under Section 475 and identify the account from which the securities were sold as containing only securities subject to the election. For more regulations, see Regulation Section 1.6045-1B63. Example. Your customer, Alex, buys 100 shares for $1,000 in September 2024. In October 2024, he sells them for $600. Within 60 days of the sale, he buys 75 shares with the same CUSIP number in the same account. Since his loss is $400, 1,000 minus 600, but the loss on 75 shares is disallowed, his disallowed loss is, his disallowed loss is added to the basis in the newly purchased 75 shares. Box 2, type of gain or loss. Determine whether the gain or loss is a short-term or long-term under Section 1022 or 1222, and whether any portion of the gain or loss is ordinary. In making the determination, you must do the following. consider any information reported on a transfer statement, consider any information reported on Form 8937, apply the rules for stock acquired from a decedent, apply the rules for stock acquired as a gift. If a customer acquired securities that caused a loss from a sale or other securities to be both non-deductible under Section 1091 and reported in Box 5 of a 2013 or earlier Form 1090B, or reported on a 214 or 215 Form 1099B with code W in the box, 1F, and an adjustment amount in box 1G, use the rules section 1223 in parentheses 3 to determine the holding period of the acquired securities. In the case of a short sale, report whether any gain or loss on the closing of the short sale is a short-term or long-term based on the acquisition date of the security delivered to close the short sale. Apply the rule in section 1233D if applicable. Except as provided below, in addition to checking the applicable short-term or long-term box, you're required to check the ordinary checkbox if all or a portion of the gain or loss may be ordinary. You may not report both short-term and long-term gain or loss on the same Form 1099B. For transactions that are denominated in a currency other than the US dollar, brokers must check ordinary checkbox because these transactions may be in Section 988 transactions to the customer. Because a customer may make an election to treat gains and losses on certain Section 988 transactions as capital, the broker must also check the short-term or long-term box to indicate whether any portion of the gain or loss may be short-term or long-term. Brokers are not required to check the ordinary checkbox if the security is a market discount bond or passive foreign investment company stock. Brokers are required to check the ordinary checkbox if the security is a contingent payment debt instrument subject to the non-contingent bond method. You are not required to consider other transactions, elections, or events occurring outside the account when determining whether the gain or loss on the sale is short-term or long-term. You're also not required to apply holding period related adjustments under Section 1259, constructive sales, 475, market-to-market method of accounting, 1092 straddles, 1233B, 2, short sales, 1296, mark-to-market method of accounting for marketable stock in a passive foreign investment company, 852B, 4A, 857BA, 852B, 4B, regulated investment company and real estate investment trust adjustments, and regulation sections 1.1221-2B, hedging transactions. I can't see. Box 3. Check box 3 if proceeds are from collectibles or from QOF. Check collectibles box if the proceeds are from reporting in box 1D or from a transaction involving collectibles. Check the QOF box if you are reporting a disposition of an interest in a QOF. Box 4, federal income tax withheld. enter backup with withholding. For example, persons who have not furnished their TIN to you in the manner required are subject to withholding on certain amounts required to be reported on this form. This is called backup withholding. For more information on backup withholding, including the rate, see Part N in the current general instructions for certain information returns and go to irs.gov Form 1099B. Use Form W-9 to request the TIN of the recipient. For foreign recipients, request the recipient complete the appropriate Form W-8. See the instructions for the requester of Forms W-8-BEN, W-8-BENE, W-8-ECI, W-8-EXP, and W-8-IMY. Box 5. Check if a non-covered security. You may check the box if reporting the sale of a non-covered security. Do not check this box if reporting the sale of a covered security. If you check this box, you do not have to complete boxes 1B, 1E, 1F, 1G, and 2, and you do not have to check box 12. If you check box 5 and choose to complete boxes 1B, 1E, 1F, 1G, and 2, you are not subject to penalties. I can almost guess because it's already said this 18 times. Under section 6721 or 6722 for failure to report boxes 1B, 1E, 1F, 1G, and 2 correctly. If you do not check box 5, you are subject to penalties under section 6721 and 6722 for failure to report boxes 1B, 1E, 1F, 1G, and 2 correctly, even if you are reporting the sale of a non-covered security. Box 6. Reported to IRS. See box 1D proceeds earlier. Box 7, check if loss not allowed based on amount in box 1D. See acquisition of control or substantial change in capital structure explained earlier. Regulated futures contracts, foreign currency contracts, and section 1256 option contracts, boxes 8 through 11, for brokers only. If you complete boxes 8 through 11, do not complete any other numbered box except box 1A, and if applicable, box 4. Also, do not complete the applicable checkbox on Form 8949 box. Box 8, profit or loss. Realized in 2024, closed on contracts. Sorry, I can't. There we go. Either enter the profit
Jane,
or loss. Yes.
Jane, real quick, can you read that that sentence one more time? I wanted to
Which
grab
one? The
that.
regulated futures contracts?
Let's see. I think you just mentioned it. 8949. I wanted to grab the phrase that they said.
Okay.
Yeah, just go back a little bit and read because
Okay.
I'm not able to find where you're at on the page. Go ahead and
Okay.
read it one
I'm
more
on
time.
where it says box 7. I was just just below box 7.
Oh,
You
okay.
see that?
Yep, I see it now. Okay. All right.
Okay. Do I need to go further up or?
Oh, okay, here we go. Closed contracts. You just read that and something
Okay.
just popped in for me. So enter the profit or loss realized by the customer on closed regulated futures, foreign currency. It's called closed contracts. That's what I heard it when it was a big ping. Okay, we're almost finished. Let's go ahead and finish reading this for the record, and I'm going to look up closed contracts template.
Okay,
Go
that
ahead.
was
Thanks,
box
Jane.
8. Yeah,
Yes, thank you. Okay,
box
perfect.
8. Profit or loss realized in 2024 on closed contracts. Enter the profit or loss realized by a customer on closed regulated futures, foreign currency, or Section 1256 option contracts in 2024. Box 9, unrealized profit or loss on open contracts, 12/31/23. Enter the unrealized profit or loss on open regulated futures, foreign currency, or Section 1256 option contracts at the end of 2023. Do not include amounts related to contracts that were open on December 31st, 2023, and were transferred to another broker during 2024. Box 10, unrealized profit or loss on open contracts, 12/31/24. You need to go up. That's as much as I can see. Wow. It was 10. I was on 10. Oh yeah, are we already to the next? There we go. Enter the unrealized profit at the end of 2024. I guess I read that. Did I not read that? Box 10, unrealized profit or loss. Let's go up to 11 then. Box 11, aggregate profit or loss on contracts. Enter the aggregate profit or loss for the year of regulated futures, foreign currency, or Section 1256 option contracts. Use boxes 8, 9, and 10 to figure aggregate profit or loss. Box 12, check if basis reporting to IRS. Check this box if you are not checking box 5, or if you are checking box 5 but are not reporting basis to the IRS in 1. What happened? Sorry. Yeah, in 1E. Okay. If you are checking box 5, reporting basis to the IRS in box 1E anyway. Do you want me to read that one over again? Checking basis to IRS? Well, I'll move on to 13. Box 13, bartering. Enter the gross amounts received by a member or client of a barter exchange. This includes a cash received, the FMV of any property or services received, and the FMV of any trade credits or scrip credited to the member's or client's account. However, do not include amounts received by a member or client in a subsequent exchange of credits or scrip. Do
Jane,
not report. Yes.
this is an important paragraph to read if you don't mind.
Read it again.
There's
The bartering?
hold on, there's a few people trying to get in. Hondo,
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're seeing them, but I think Marduk and a couple people are trying to get in. So
Okay.
Jane, just hold on 1 second for us.
I will. Yep. And I can read bartering over again when we do
Yeah.
that.
That's a great one to read over again. Yeah, perfect.
I thought so.
Hondo, are you seeing Marduk yet?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, wonderful. Greetings. Okay. I think a few people were just needing to pop in. Go ahead, Jane.
Okay. Box 13, bartering. Enter the gross amounts received by a member or client of barter exchange. This includes cash received, the FMV of any property or services received, and the FMV of any trade credits or scrip credited to the member's or client's account.
Okay,
However-
so that just for the recording, Jane, that's a fair market value. Right?
Okay, right. Yep.
Okay, so that is a basis for, because none of these vendors or merchants reported our agreement in commerce, we get 10 times the amount back because we're the original issuer of the intended units in the marketplace. So why we get 10 times the amount back is because we're the originator that caused the basis for the B. So that's so important. People looking, and when they hear the recording and they're looking at box 13, think of box 13 as literally the treasure chest. So go
Interesting,
ahead and
'cause
finish that. I think I interrupted you right in the middle.
That's
Go
all right,
ahead.
but isn't it interesting that it's box 13?
Right? Which,
Because 13 is always considered an unlucky number, but in fact, that's not the truth.
well,
13
remember too, 3 + 1 is 4, and look at the dollar sign on your keyboard.
Exactly.
And 4 is also the foundation of a pyramid, which is a trust. 3 sureties and a Benny.
There you go. So it just like, and they never do these things by accident.
Yeah,
None
it's
of these
very
numbers.
biblical, and what we're reading is an interpretation of a biblical event that was memorialized at the time of our birth to take care of, let's say, a foundling like me that was abandoned at birth. The system was always there to take care of those who needed it, but in a beautiful kind of way, the wealth of the wicked stored up for the righteous, who would eventually find their way back through the treasure map, and X marks the spot, which is us. We were the treasure all along, right? So
Right,
it's
we're
a
the gold.
beautiful hedge of protection for those who take the time to take the helm and take the interest of the matter, which is the family business. They will certainly find their way to the treasure chest, right?
Exactly. Fixed market value. Okay. Do you want me to read that one again, or just, however,
Yeah.
do not?
Yeah. I
read
think
the
I
whole thing over
interrupted you
again?
right in the middle. Yeah. However, do not include amounts received by a member or client in a subsequent exchange of credits or scrip. You guys got to get that. Okay. That is huge. So when we sent proceeds of $30 to pay a dividend apportionment to keep our cell phone on, we put $30 a month into the pooled fund called the marketplace, right?
Yes.
They times that $30 a month receivable times 12 months accounts receivable. We can expect this much from Jane in the fiscal year 2023 because she's in a Spectrum contract with us. And it's whatever, $350 worth of payments per year, per annum, right? Now we get to do that amount times 10. Spectrum never reported the bartering 9 times the amount to us, right?
Here.
Nina, can you mute, please? Nina?
So since they got to, well, so let's just put it this way. Because their accounts receivable got the opportunity to file a 941 quarterly, they get to get back quarterly the dividend checks you sent to Spectrum in total. So divide your 12 months worth, divide the $350 into 4 estimated tax payments, but then you've got what? 1 million customers?
Huh.
Are you starting to see the bank side?
Absolutely.
Okay, so all we're doing is collapsing the contract because they borrowed our credits, profited on the backside of it. We made them essential and voted for them, but they never let us into the club. So we get to call back 10 times the amount. Now let's look at the other side that we're doing, ESs and Bs. That's the script. We're gonna look up the definition of script, but look at it right there, tucked away. Credits
Yep.
are script. So if I send 250,000 to the exchequer at the accounting department for 250,000 and I put a negative in front of it, that's a money order. That's not a proceed I sent to Spectrum that they're profiting on and never giving me a drop. See the difference? You're paying yourself in the future, filling your cookie jar up so that you can hire someone to pay the bills for you monthly to Spectrum. You get to expense all that at the end of the year because you actually prepaid yourself for all the bills, which allows you to go to Tahiti for the summer. Hopefully that makes sense, but this is really key. I want everybody to see this. Do not include amounts received by a member or a client in a subsequent exchange of credits or script. I call it script with a T, but script is, I guess, the official definition. Do not report negative amounts. Okay. Makes sense? Because we're doing
Yep.
a callback. We're actually doing 10 times the amount, which you could say is a plus sign because we're putting it in the barter box. Make sense?
Correct.
Cha-ching. Just think of the barter box as cha-ching, and you're pulling that lever. All right. You're calling back your signature of $350 a year without disrupting your service, by the way. And when you pull that lever, you're going to get back 10 times the amount you put in that slot machine on your tax return. Everybody's made whole. Everybody's happy. Now that company gets an audit, and it's a basis for a takeover of a corporation who's been using and profiting without disclosing the usury and the contract that was unconscionable from the beginning. Because why? It was usury and they didn't tell us. So therefore, we're coming out of the usury contract, getting ourselves paid 10 times back the amount while they take this shit show of usury and level the playing field for everybody. And you actually turn into being a stockholder of Spectrum.
Interesting. Yes, absolutely. I get it.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for that. I really wanted to underline that for the people listening to the recording. Go ahead, Jane. We're almost done.
Okay, boxes 14 through 16, state information. These boxes may be used by filers who participate in the combined federal state filing program and or who are required to file paper copies of this form with a state tax department. See publication 1220 for more information regarding the combined federal state filing program.
Let me just make that super easy since we're almost done here, okay?
Yep.
There's 12 states that I know of at the moment that have a parent-child relationship, federal state co-reporting duty, okay, for compliance purposes. So only some states have state tax departments where only if your entity is a registered business in the marketplace in the state where you take money from the public, the 1099-B otherwise is only needed to be filed on a federal tax return for a 1040 person or on the 1041 like we're being taught how to do, because the B's are considered interest, credits, conveyance of a conveyance transaction, gift to gift, credit to credit, like kind exchange on what I would call the private side of the ledger. So it's the social no dashes kind of deal, which is how she's teaching us to kind of operate in both our 1041 capacity, but also if we are married and we still have a estate reporting, married filing jointly, you're going to want to do the B on the 1041 once your living trust is done. But in the meantime, if you are only filing 1040s at the time, you are able to do the B. But what they're saying is if you do the B on the public side where the state needs to see the record of what the federal's seeing, that's the only time you'd need to fill in the state information. And that really, it really kind of is a compliance thing, because let's say someone brand new is learning how to do all this stuff and they're not set up in their trust yet, but they want to claim back their Spectrum credits, let's say, and it's the end of the year, we're coming into the end of the year and everybody, it's kind of in a rush. They can simply take that B that they've just done, or a stack of their Bs that they just completed. They can take it to their tax preparer person, normally does their taxes for their business or whatever. And that tax person will put it on a Schedule C for them for their small business or their gig or their side business, and basically file the amended return for them. I'm just kind of giving you guys scenarios that now that we've read the instructions and we see all the possibilities that are open and available to us, I just wanted to let people know so it doesn't create a question and a quagmire and a burden. Some people where they're living have to file up with the state, but most cases you don't have to file with the state or report to the state or have any withholding at the state level, because by nature of it being a 1099, it's a return service of credit requested, and it's only federal level. So covenant, Father, Trinity, trust, right? The biblical side of these 1099s is the Father, which is the federal level. For instance, officer on a ship or someone who's deployed out 6 months out of the year or gone for 2 years. Those folks, those officers have a commissioner that actually files their quarterlies or their annuals while that officer is deployed in service. And so they only file straight across federal returns, regardless of where their home and family is residing at the state level. They're only it's called a withholding only return. Withholding only return. So that barter amount is the withheld amount that can simply be sent in with a 1040 or a W-4 even, with the recipient on the W-4, no 10 provided, attach that W-4 to the 1099-B, ship that out to the accounting department, and you've just filed a return without having to file an annual tax return. Is that making sense to everybody? I hope it is. Just trying to, I know it's a lot of this is new, so I'm just trying not to complicate it, but I'm also trying to make sure everybody knows that we really are free to navigate by our free will, choice, and desires, right? And once you've listened to this, you're able to say, the doctrine of necessity has produced the benefit of my discovery. And I'm coming with clean hands and good faith to bring this forward. Let me go let my friend in to the gateway and I'll be right back. Jane, and then we can finish the recording after you're done with I think we might be done actually. So we can close the recording off and I'll be right back to discuss the templates I made. Okay. While you were talking, I was like getting downloads. Okay. So I'll be right back to let my friend in the gate.
Okay, so we're going to stop the recording. Is that what she just said? Yes, no?
Yes,
I think she said
Yeah,
finish.
she said yes.
I think she said finish reading and then stop the recording.
Okay, so do you want me to go ahead and read through the box 14 and 16? I mean, I think I made it through part, but
Yeah. Go ahead.
These boxes may be used by filers who participate in the combined federal state filing program and who are required to file paper copies of this form with a state tax department. And again, that's what she covered. These are provided for your convenience only and need not be completed for the IRS. Use the state information boxes to report payments for up to 2 states. Keep the information for each state separated by a dash line. If you withheld state income tax on this payment, you may enter it in box 16. In box 14, enter the abbreviated name of the state. In box 15, enter the filer's state identification number. The state number is a filer's identification number assigned by the individual state. If a state tax department requires that you send them a paper copy of this form, use copy 1 to provide information to the state tax department. Give copy 2 to the payee for use in filing the payee state income tax. And that's as much as I can see. It needs to scroll. Naturally.
I think this
That's
is
it.
the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's see. Oops. That it just left. Okay. For me, maybe I just got cut off.
No, yeah, I think he
Okay.
stopped sharing his screen.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, one can assume that we can all, if we get the 1099B, we can read that last. There was maybe possibly one line that I did not read.
Hondo, can you pull the screen back up, bro? Or do you want me to do it? Copy. Wow, bro. You're driving?
He was doing that while he was driving?
Wow.
Seriously?
1 second.
Wow.
Okay.
No wonder he was like having a hard time scrolling when I got to the end of a sentence. Wow. That's
I'm on my phone and I don't
pretty
want to.
impressive.
I'm on my phone and I don't want to. I don't want to leave. And okay, there we go. Kimry, you might want to zoom in a little here.
Yeah, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to just start with, while Jane was reading, I was picking up on the little nuggets that they were dropping. Okay. And in the 1099 come out of her My People room that you created, which was brilliant, by the way. Thanks for doing that.
Of course.
I started creating templates. I started talking with GPT while Jane was reading, and I was getting boom, 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 like one after the other. I was like, let me see if GPT can create a letter that would be pertinent to what our purposes are and what we're doing. And so I'm just going to read through what a couple of these are, and I've already posted the verbiage so you can put it in your own Word document in 1099. Come out of For My People, okay?
Yeah, you plus ChatGPT would be a very unstoppable thing, actually. You should continue to use that tool.
Yeah, I wanted to teach people how to empower themselves when they're needing to communicate with our accountants up yonder, okay? Since I don't have a secretary who can print out templates and, professionally formatted letters, I'm not some big executive that has all this money that I can hire 5 secretaries right now, right, to do my work for me. So in the meantime, what am I doing? I'm using ChatGPT. All right. So let's see. Do we stop the recording for the 1099B portion?
I don't know. I don't have. You're the host, I think so.
It looks like, yeah, he did. He sure did. And
Oh,
Hondo,
Hondo's
is
driving.
Hondo gone?
He's driving. So do you want to
Oh,
make?
He was driving the whole time.
Yeah, Hondo. Whenever you get a chance, bro. Like not right now, but just make me host.
Maybe I can do it or he can do it. I'm not sure.
I
Let's
think 'cause
see.
you made him host.
Yeah.
I don't think
Okay.
it'll let you, but I don't know.
Let me see. I can take it back actually. Let me see right
can?
here. Let me hold on. Let me just see if I can take it back. Give me 1 second.
Up on top, it says this meeting is being recorded. So I think it
He
is
made
not.
me. He made me.
Start it
he
up.
made me host. I got it.
Okay, got it.
Okay, we can keep it recording if you want. It's quite a long recording as it is. And we can create a separate recording for just the templates. What do you think?
Yeah, I could stop